The dim, wavering light from the lampposts lining the driveway into the Blackwood estate flickered like lost stars, reflecting on the asphalt still heavy with mist. Alexander Blackwood sat slumped in his office on the top floor of the twin skyscraper, his perfectly pressed black suit and charcoal-striped tie swallowed by the darkness. 12 relentless hours at the helm of a multinational conglomerate, he had not rested, nor relaxed. Yet tonight, the very tension and solitude that drove him also made his head spin the moment he set foot in the grand foyer. Not far away, in a shadowed alley, Ariana Miller ran for her life. She could still taste the pungent chloroform in the water the traffickers had forced on her, the haze that had felled her in that abandoned warehouse. Her father, the man who had once sold her for money, was probably kneeling now before his new creditors. Under the first patter of autumn rain, Ariana's eyes were red but resolute. She would not bow to fate. Fleeing past a row of derelict fishing boats, she spotted a massive iron gate left ajar. Instinct told her that beyond it lay the safest refuge. She vaulted over the stone step, slipped inside, and crept down a long corridor. The heady scent of oak and leather from the priceless furnishings enveloped her. Suddenly her legs gave out, and she collapsed against the stairwell's edge, her heart pounding in her ears. At that moment, Carnation, Alexander's closest aide, entered bearing a tray of fine wine. Before Ariana could cry out, she found herself served a second glass. The mist bloomed again in her head, her limbs grew heavy. She turned away in vain. At that instant, the adjacent door swung open. Having just received an urgent call, Alexander hurried out, and collided with her in the dark. Firelight danced across the walls, illuminating Alexander's cold, startled face. The girl who had passed like a phantom down the corridor had struck him. Their eyes met for an instant as their wineglasses shattered, frothy droplets skittering across the wooden floor. The sedative's power surged, Alexander swayed, bracing himself against the window ledge. Ariana burst into tears and slumped forward. Neither realized they both bowed toward each other, breaths dry and mingled in the mansion's secretive gloom. When the final wisps of consciousness faded, they fell together, the only sound their ragged breathing. Thus began a chain of fateful events neither could have foreseen, an unwitting night of intimacy, followed by a disappearance without a trace. Before dawn had fully broken, the opulent bedroom in the Blackwood estate was already suffused with pale light. Slender shafts of sunrise filtering through the floor-to-ceiling glass panes painted shimmering lines across the walnut floor. Alexander Blackwood awoke in a half-dream, his head still reeling from the aftertaste of the drug-laced liquor. He sat bolt upright and turned toward the bedside, only to find cold emptiness where another should have lain. He blinked rapidly, then looked down at the floor and spotted something small and gleaming. Crouching, he picked it up, a delicate silver bracelet, its clasp finely wrought, no piece belonging to Carnation or any aide in his corporation. Alexander turned it over in his hand and noticed a feather motif engraved on its interior, a symbol he had never seen in his mother's priceless jewelry collection or anywhere in the family vault. He murmured, "Whose is this?" His hoarse voice echoing through the cavernous room. For a moment he racked his memory for last night's events, the wineglass shattering, a shadow darting past, the soft whimper in his ear. Then nothing. He frowned, rose, threw on a silk robe, and strode into the corridor. At the stairwell's head stood his security team, awaiting orders. Alexander handed the bracelet to Captain Gould. "Retrieve every frame from the estate's internal cameras, from last night until dawn. Find out who wore this bracelet, or who passed along this hallway." Gould saluted. "Yes, sir. I'll have the data pulled immediately." Alexander paced the plush fur carpet. A breeze whispered through a slightly ajar window. He paused before the door stained with a few drops of dried wine and surveyed the red-dashed marble threshold, sole evidence of the night's chaos. In his mind's eye he saw the flicker of a slender woman in a form-fitting gown, her tangled brown curls, her tear-brimmed, terrified eyes. Back in his office, he sank into his dark ebony desk chair. Carnation placed a fresh cup of black coffee before him. Alexander sipped, striving to dispel the hazy remnants in his mind. "Carnation?" he said softly. Her voice replied from the doorway, "Sir, the security footage has been extracted. We spotted an unknown woman entering the back gate at approximately 1:15 a.m., wearing a burgundy dress and carrying a small handbag. After that, she disappears from every camera." Alexander's gaze sharpened. "Trace her footprints. Check for fingerprints. I want to know where she went, which room she entered, and by which exit she left the estate." Carnation nodded. "We'll have results within the hour, sir." He nodded in return, massaged his temples, then looked out the window at the hazy gray sky, wondering who this woman was, and why she had so unexpectedly entered his life. All morning, Alexander was a man possessed. He postponed routine meetings, business reports piled up unanswered. He studied each blurry frame of the corridor camera, scrutinizing every millisecond of her passage. But it wasn't enough. No name, no clear face, only a faint silver bracelet glinting in select shots. By noon, Captain Gould reported, "Sir, we've combed every nook around the garden, pool, garage, and all gates, main and auxiliary. No handbag or foreign fingerprints. It seems she knew a secret escape route, or else someone aided her." Alexander stood and walked to the window once more. "Who is she? And why did she have this bracelet?" "That remains unknown, sir," replied Gould. "But we'll widen the search to nearby museums, jewelry shops, even local hotels." Alexander turned, eyes dark with resolve. This time, leave no clue unexamined. The afternoon wore on in tense silence. Alexander skipped lunch, drank only coffee. Each time he paused to jot a note, he glanced at the bracelet lying on his desk. The small trinket felt heavy with mystery, its secret beckoning him onward. At sunset, city lights began to flicker below, and Alexander finally left the office. Before boarding the elevator, he drew a deep breath. "I will find her, even if I must scour every corner of the earth." And in his heart, he knew this quest was about more than a silver bracelet. It was about the woman who had stirred his once frozen heart in the most unexpected way. At first light, Alexander stood in the security director's office. His heart thudded as if pounding against steel, and his gaze was sharper than ever. Carnation and Captain Gould awaited his orders. "I want every possible escape route from this estate rechecked," Alexander commanded. "From the storm drains to the emergency exits, no passage may be overlooked." Gould bowed his head. "Yes, sir. We'll begin immediately." Alexander spread the estate map before them, tracing every service alley and back pathway with his fingertip. They discovered a maintenance route along the north fence, leading into the overgrown garden. Alexander dispatched his team to scour that area for any trace. Meanwhile, Ariana Miller was holed up in a makeshift cabin outside the city, her refuge after that fateful night. She'd removed the silver bracelet and hidden it beneath her threadbare mattress. Every time her fingers brushed its cool metal, she shivered at the memory of the stranger's unreadable gaze. She whispered to herself, "He can't be the villain. But I cannot stay here any longer." She repacked her bag with essentials for her unborn twins, basic medicines, a change of clothes, and a few weathered photographs of the deserted shore, her only mementos of a life left behind. "I must find someplace safer, where no one knows my name," she vowed. Back at Blackwood Estate, the search yielded little. No matching fingerprints, no muddy footprints that fit the grounds. The north fence cameras captured only a blurred silhouette of a woman in a red dress, disappearing into the morning fog. Alexander sat in a small conference room, printouts of every grainy frame piled before him. He studied each one, the dim lighting, awkward angles, none provided a clear identification. Frustration churned in his chest. "Any progress?" Carnation asked softly. "Not enough," he replied coldly. "We must locate her bag, trace her exit route. If we let this slip, we may never find her again." He rose and stared out the window at the glittering city below, feeling only shadows of doubt and obsession. By evening, Alexander returned to his penthouse. He shed his vest, draped it over a chair, and gazed out at the skyline, clutching a photo he'd taken of the bracelet, the only tangible link between him and the mysterious woman. Suddenly, a breakthrough. Immigration records showed an Ariana Miller had entered the country 3 years ago, her last passport entry dated the night before her disappearance. But her registered address was blank. Awake in the dark, Alexander made a bold decision. He would have Carnation compile every missing woman case from the past 3 years, cross-reference faces with his scant footage. He knew it would consume time, but he could not abandon the search. Far from the bustle, Ariana faced her own worries. She squeezed fresh fish in the early market to feed her unborn children, the distant roar of waves offering a rare calm. Her thoughts drifted to that night, the trafficker's screams, the bitter taste of chloroform, and the stranger's icy eyes. She wondered, is he still looking for me? Did he remember the bracelet he found? Guilt and fear welled within her. She pressed a hand to her belly, as though shielding her twins, and herself. A whisper rose in her chest, if he finds me. Could I bear to return to his world of power, wealth, and that astonished look in his eyes? Back at the estate, Gould reported preliminary findings. Among hundreds of missing persons reports, several women shared the name Ariana Miller, but none matched the red dress or the distinctive bracelet. Time pressed on, and the pressure mounted. Alexander briefly questioned whether the whole encounter had been a mere illusion, destined to dissolve like a fleeting nightmare. Yet his heart would not relent. On the third morning, as he prepared for a business trip to Farora Island under the guise of a real estate survey, he told Carnation, "Book my flight for the earliest departure." Carnation looked puzzled. "Farora is an undeveloped isle with scant commerce, why choose it?" Alexander smiled enigmatically, eyes alight with determination. "Clues seldom appear where we expect. Pack my bags." Thus began his search beyond the metropolis, toward the remote sea where Ariana, only a few hundred nautical miles away, sheltered with her unborn twins, unknowing that their fates were drawing ever closer. Alexander Blackwood stepped into the grand hotel lobby by the harbor. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows and danced on the water beyond. Ostensibly here to survey real estate, he was in truth pursuing a far different lead, the faint hope that some clue to the woman in the red dress might emerge in this unexpected place. On the yacht's deck, among engineers and advisors, Alexander gazed toward the horizon where the secluded island of Farora lay, wild and untouched by tourism. He pressed his hand to the railing and inhaled the bracing salt air. Always, the image of the slender silver bracelet haunted him. Perhaps here, among these hidden sands, he would rediscover the truth behind that token and the woman who wore it. Meanwhile, in a small wooden shack on Farora's shoreline, Ariana Miller prepared breakfast for her twins. 3-year-olds Lily and Leo chased one another across the golden sand, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic surf. Ariana smiled softly, lifting Leo and watching Lily scoop up broken shells. Her threadbare dress and tangled hair belied the fierce strength in her eyes. Once a victim sold into slavery, she had, for 3 years, raised her children alone in this remote refuge. As the survey team disembarked, Alexander paused on the quay. He donned a light jacket and strode onto the dusty road leading to the fishing village beyond. Unaware that fate was steering her toward him, Ariana left her home at dawn's first light to fetch fish. Carrying her woven basket, she ambled along the pier. A sudden shout drew her gaze to a small skiff rocking in the surf, where villagers were lifting an injured man onto the dock. Blood stained his shoulder and temple, he groaned as though barely clinging to consciousness. Without hesitation, Ariana knelt beside him, unwrapped her scarf to staunch his wounds, and then hoisted him onto her back. The fisherman stared in disbelief. "Are you crazy?" one shouted. "That's Alexander Blackwood, the billionaire tycoon." Ariana met his gaze, steady and calm. "We have to save him." Somewhere between delirium and pain, Alexander's eyes fluttered open. He recognized the rush of dark hair tied low, the weary but determined face above him. His voice, strained and hoarse, escaped, Ariana?" Her heart pounded. She carried him into her humble home, where Lily and Leo shrank back in surprise. Gently, Ariana wrapped him in a coarse blanket and propped him against a chair. She brewed ginger tea and offered him a cup. He sipped, astonished. "How do you know my name?" he asked. She frowned. "I didn't, until I saw the bracelet." She produced the silver bangle, sand-caked but unmistakable, and held it out. Alexander's hand trembled as she fastened it around his wrist. At that touch, memories flooded back, the shattered wineglass, the thrust of a stranger in the dark, the sting of sedative in his veins, and her tearful eyes. Under the sea breeze and fading light, they stood facing one another, he, the cold CEO who had forgotten his own heart, she, the destitute mother who had found purpose in love. Alexander drew a deep breath. "You vanished 3 years ago. I searched everywhere. Now, I want to hear your story." Ariana nodded, tears glistening. "I will tell you. But first, let me tend your wounds." Thus on the deserted shore, beneath the salt-laden breeze, their journey of revelation and redemption began. Dawn over Farora tinted the sky with rose and gold. Waves whispered against the rocky beach, and seabirds fluttered above the cove. Ariana's wooden hut nestled among slender palms, its thatched roof offered shelter from sun and rain. Rising at her accustomed hour, Ariana drew back the thin curtained doorway. Lily and Leo already played in the sand, collecting shells. She waved briskly. "Lily, Leo, wash your hands quickly, breakfast is almost ready." "Look, Mama," Lily chirped, holding up a heart-shaped shell. Ariana ruffled her daughter's hair. "Beautiful. I'll keep it for you." Inside, she mixed oatmeal with powdered milk over smoldering coals. Leo scrambled onto a chair. "Add lots of sugar," he demanded, grinning. "Just a little," Ariana laughed, careful as she tended Alexander's shoulder wound with soothing ointment. He sat dozing in a wicker chair, wincing now and then. "Better?" she asked. He opened his eyes and managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Ariana." Hearing his voice brought a flush to her cheeks. She glanced at her children recounting their morning mischief, then returned her gaze to Alexander. "They're a handful, but they're good kids. You'll get used to them." He nodded, admiration in his eyes. "I've never met anyone so strong and caring." When the sun rose higher, Ariana led Alexander through the fishing village. Palm thatch huts clustered among red clay paths, baskets of fresh catch lined the docks. Villagers greeted Ariana warmly. To them, she was one of their own, not the estate heiress's lost guest. Alexander observed in silence, struck by the genuine simplicity of their lives. By midday, Ariana served her signature tangy seafood soup at a wooden table shaded by palms. Steam rose as Alexander tasted the rich blend of ocean salt and wild herbs. "I've never eaten anything so delicious," he said, savoring each spoonful. She smiled with quiet pride. "This is my children's favorite. Try it." Leo lifted his spoon triumphantly. "Delicious." Their laughter blended with the crackle of the charcoal stove. Yet Alexander's mind drifted back to boardrooms and projections, until this moment of warmth beside her. As afternoon clouds gathered, A sudden downpour rattled the palm leaves. Inside, they sat by the open window, sipping hot ginger tea. Ariana ventured, "You've searched for me 3 years. Why come here?" Alexander grasped her hand across the pottery cup. "Because it wasn't coincidence. I need to know why you vanished, and I want to protect you and the children." Tears glimmered in her eyes. Memories of fugitive nights, of chloroform's sting, of her newborn twins' first cries, pressed her chest. Her voice trembled. "I had to survive for them. I was afraid you'd take them, afraid they'd lose their mother." He pulled her close. "Never. I want to care for our family." Outside, the rain eased and a shaft of sunlight broke through. Their hearts drew nearer in quiet promise. That night, with the children asleep, Alexander paced the veranda, palms swaying in the sea breeze. He thought, 3 years of searching was not in vain. Here, I have found her, and my heart has finally awakened. Night fell swiftly, and the Farora breeze turned fierce. Thunder grumbled as black clouds churned overhead. Alexander woke to the wind howling past the shutters. He found Ariana in the hallway securing the makeshift awning with rope borrowed from the fisherman. Lily and Leo huddled on the bunk bed, eyes squeezed shut at the storm's roar. Seeing him, Ariana managed a tired smile. The storm came on too fast. That roof could tear off at any moment. Alexander bent to kiss her forehead. "I'll help." Together, by the flicker of a lantern, they tightened loose boards and lashed the roofing with heavy timbers. Rain pelted the tin roof, drumming like 1,000 drums overhead. Sweat and rain mingled on their faces, but their eyes remained locked in mutual resolve. When the wind reached a deafening pitch, Alexander gathered Ariana and the children and led them to the storm cellar, a small former fishing co-op storage room she had converted into a refuge. The gale shrieked through the entrance, carrying salt spray and icy spray inside. Lily gripped her mother's arm. "I'm scared." Ariana stroked her hair. "I'm here, darling. I won't let anything happen to you." Alexander knelt beside Leo. "You're brave. Once the storm passes, we'll hunt for more shells together." Leo nodded through tears but smiled. The tempest wrought havoc, palms uprooted, fishing nets torn loose, roofs ripped away. When morning light finally filtered through the cellar vents, the landscape lay battered and transformed. Ariana led her family outside to survey the damage. The awning was gone, sheets of tin and splintered wood strewn across the sand. She sighed, but Alexander placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "We'll rebuild it together. You don't have to do this alone anymore." That day, with help from local fishermen, they restored the hut's roof. Alexander climbed the ladder to secure the new panels while Ariana steadied the ropes below. In the golden dawn after the storm, they worked side by side, 2 hearts united in purpose. Later, seated on a makeshift deck they'd built, they sipped steaming soup. Ariana's fingernails were flecked with sawdust and her hair tousled, yet she glowed with pride. Alexander looked at her with awe. "Not only did you save me, you've helped this entire island recover." She met his gaze, eyes shining. "This place, with you and the children, is my haven. And you've given me a home in your heart." Their kiss was soft but steadfast, a promise forged through wind and rain. In the quiet aftermath, the bonds of family and love sealed their future. That evening, Lily and Leo played with wooden blocks gifted by the fisherman. They ran to Alexander with joyous shouts, and he scooped them into his arms before turning to Ariana. "Now, we can begin planning our life together. I have a home and a family worth protecting." Ariana smiled through tears. "As long as you stay, we are safe." Farora's wild shore lay silent under the setting sun, but within the little hut, love and hope blazed brighter than any storm. The sun climbed toward midday, its rays filtering through the willow branches outside the porch and dancing across the wooden floor. Alexander Blackwood set his steaming coffee cup on the table and watched Ariana lay out clothes for Lily and Leo. His gaze was full of tenderness. "Are you feeling better?" he asked, a gentle smile playing on his lips. Ariana turned, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, her smile radiant. "I'm fine. Thank you for staying here." Alexander inhaled deeply and stepped closer, leveling his eyes with hers. "Ariana, since meeting you again, every moment here, my heart no longer has room for loneliness or power. I want you to know I'm ready for a real family." Ariana's brow furrowed slightly, moisture glinting in her eyes. "Family is a luxury to me. Do you know how much I sacrificed to protect my 2 children?" "I do," he said. "I know what you endured, that night you were sold, the years you raised your twins alone on this wild island." Alexander's voice grew firm and warm, "And I know you deserve happiness. I want to walk forward with you, not to turn you into a corporate heiress, but to be the support you and the children need." Ariana fell silent, her heart racing. For 3 years she relied solely on herself. Now, the thought of a wealthy man willing to forsake prestige to share a simple life with her and her children made her both joyful and fearful. Leo and Lily pressed close, then ran to hug Alexander's legs. "Daddy, stay here with us," they cried. Alexander smiled and lifted Leo into his arms. "I will always be here for you and Mommy." Their laughter rang out, a bell of hope across Farora's open expanse. Tears welled in Ariana's eyes. You really want to be with us?" "I swear it," he said, clasping her hand. "From now on, you and the children are my only priority. I will protect, care for, and love this little family with all my heart." Ariana nodded through happy tears. "Then let's register our marriage as soon as we return to the city." Alexander's face broke into a bright smile. "I'll arrange it immediately." That afternoon, after the children's nap, Alexander sat on the beach clutching the silver bracelet, the tangible link of their destiny. Ariana leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "There's one more thing. When I fled the traffickers, I sold my mother's wedding ring and kept only this bracelet, the only gift she left me. That's why I guarded it so fiercely." Alexander held her close, his voice choked with emotion. "I will restore everything to you, a home, your parents, whatever you need. I'll help you heal every wound." Ariana lifted her head, eyes bright with newfound hope. "If you mean it, then I accept." Under Farora's untamed sky, their hearts beat as one. From now on, their journey would be guided not by ambition or power, but by genuine love and the steps they took together to build a home. The next morning's light was gentle as Alexander and Ariana prepared to depart Farora. Before leaving, Ariana led him into her small wooden home, where tokens of her struggle lined the shelves. From a worn suitcase, she pulled out a weathered leather journal and a stack of faded photographs. "This is my diary since I escaped the traffickers," Ariana said, her voice catching. "It contains every address I reached, countless letters that went unanswered, and the photo taken when I gave birth to Lily and Leo at a seaside clinic." Alexander flipped through the pages, tears welling. He paused at an entry, April 12, 2022. "My child was born safely. I vow to protect you until my last breath." He reached for Ariana's hand and murmured, "You lived for them all these years. I never knew." Ariana brushed away her tears, pride shining through her pain. "Now you know, and it's time we move forward together." Aboard the ship bound for the city, Alexander shared her story with Carnation and his brother Jonathan. Jonathan's expression darkened. "Your fiancée was trafficked. You plan to bring her into the family?" Alexander met his brother's gaze, resolute. She is the mother of my children and my wife. Jonathan fell silent, envisioning the upheaval this choice would bring to House Blackwood. When the limousine carrying Alexander, Ariana, and the twins rolled through the Blackwood estate gates, a hush fell over the grounds. Gone was the ragged dress. Ariana now wore a simple, elegant gown, her hair neatly styled. Lily and Leo clutched her hands, their wide eyes fixed on the white doves cooing in the courtyard. In the marble foyer, Jonathan greeted them with a stiff smile. From the upstairs balcony, Alexander's parents descended, Helena's eyes sharp with scrutiny, Victor's deep voice resonant. "Alexander, who have you brought home?" Alexander bowed respectfully. "Mother, father, this is my wife, Ariana Miller, and our children, Lily and Leo." Helena's brow furrowed. "A former slave, vanished without a trace. Are you certain about this match?" Ariana remained composed and offered a courteous bow. "Madam, sir, I know I am unlike anyone in your family. But I love Alexander, and Lily and Leo are the very bond that unites us." Tension cracked when Lily held up a colorful drawing of their new family. Leo tugged at Victor's sleeve and whispered, "Grandpa, can you take me out on the boat?" Victor's stern facade broke into a reluctant smile. "Very well, I'll see about getting you a boat." In that moment, the chill in the grand hall thawed as innocence and affection bridged worlds, and the Blackwoods welcomed their newest members. Only days after Ariana's formal introduction to the Blackwood estate, a silent war erupted within the family's corridors of influence. Jonathan, uneasy at the sudden shift in his brother's loyalties and inheritance, quietly set his plan in motion, an anonymous smear campaign insinuating that Ariana had manipulated Alexander for status and wealth. Social media buzzed with rumors, tabloids printed speculative headlines. In his penthouse office, Alexander watched the trending topics read with innuendo. He clenched the silver bracelet that had become his talisman. Determined to defend his wife's honor, and the unity he had fought so hard to forge, he called an urgent all-staff assembly at the corporate headquarters. The following morning, the gleaming lobby filled with journalists, executives, and board members. Flanked by Ariana, poised in a simple yet elegant suit, and his rock-steady aide Carnation, Alexander stepped before the cameras. His voice rang clear. "Ariana Miller is no opportunist. She is the mother of my children, the woman who risked her life to save mine, and the partner with whom I choose to build a family. Any suggestion otherwise is a malicious falsehood. I stand by her without reservation." His words reverberated through the hall and were broadcast live across news channels. The air crackled as Ariana stepped forward to address the crowd herself. "I did not come here for power or privilege. I came because I love Alexander and our children. My only agenda is their well-being, and the integrity of this family." Cameras flashed, and a hush fell over the assembled crowd. Within hours, public sentiment began to shift. Many journalists reached out to Farora's residents, whose testimonials painted Ariana as a humble, selfless mother and community pillar. The smear campaign collapsed under the weight of truth and heartfelt endorsements. Back at the estate, Jonathan confronted Alexander in the study, tension crackling between them. "Do you see what this has done to our reputation?" Jonathan hissed. Alexander met his brother's glare steadily. "I see you underestimated everyone's loyalty to honesty and compassion." Jonathan's shoulders sagged in reluctant concession. "I won't stand in your way, if you truly embrace her as family." Alexander's expression softened. "Ariana is my family. I trust you will welcome her the same way." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Alexander joined Ariana on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Lanterns glowed along the rose-lined paths where their engagement had taken place. He slipped an arm around her shoulders. "You were magnificent today," he murmured. Ariana leaned into him, relief and pride mingling in her eyes. With you by my side, I could face anything. Below them, the Blackwood legacy, once a fortress of cold ambition, now stood transformed into a home defined by love, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds they had forged together. As the city lights shimmered across the estate grounds, Alexander and Ariana knew their greatest triumph was not a boardroom victory, but the steadfast unity of their blended family at last. A week after the public vindication, a new crisis struck the Blackwood empire, an act of sabotage at the group's vaccine production facility. Late one evening, alarms blared as an explosion rocked the plant's perimeter. Smoke and panic spread among the emergency crews. Alexander raced to the control center, finding technicians in disarray and security forces fanned out across the compound. His voice cut through the chaos: evacuate the injured first, secure the perimeter, and notify Ariana. Meanwhile, Ariana, having accompanied her children on a charity visit to the on-site medical clinic, rushed back with Lily and Leo at her side. She swung into action, helping staff tend to wounded workers, organizing makeshift triage stations, and using her self-taught medical knowledge to stabilize those suffering smoke inhalation or shrapnel wounds. Under her calm direction, fear gave way to order. Alexander appeared by her shoulder, surveying the scene with gratitude and resolve. "You're incredible," he said, voice thick. "Stay with them, let me handle security." She nodded without hesitation, tending to a frightened nurse. "We'll get through this together." Over the following hours, the combined efforts of Ariana's care and Alexander's command restored safety to the facility. As dawn broke, the exhausted survivors gathered in the courtyard. Alexander climbed onto a crate before them, the silver bracelet peeking from under his sleeve. In clear, steady tones he addressed the crowd. "Thanks to every one of you, and to Ariana's heroic leadership, no life was lost tonight. We will rebuild stronger than ever, and we will not allow fear or malice to tear us apart." Applause rose like a wave. Ariana joined him on the crate's edge, linking arms with her husband. The employees, no longer faceless subordinates but a community they had fought to protect, cheered in unison. Late that night, after the last ambulance departed, Alexander and Ariana stood on the hospital terrace, the city lights shimmering beneath them. He slipped his hand into hers. "Today you saved lives, and held our family safe. I am proud beyond words." She rested her head on his shoulder. "As long as we stand together, no storm can break us." 1 month later, in the secluded rose garden behind the Blackwood mansion, family and friends gathered under a canopy of blushing blooms. A gentle breeze carried the scent of petals as Lily and Leo toddled among guests, delighting in their newfound grandparents' attention. Helena and Victor stood by the arbor, their expressions a mixture of pride and affection. Jonathan, now wholly reconciled, offered his arm to Ariana. She accepted with a bright smile. At the center of the gathering, Alexander and Ariana faced one another beneath a simple wooden arch. In his hand, Alexander held 2 heirloom silver bracelets, each engraved with a single feather, symbolizing their shared journey. He placed one on Ariana's wrist, then the other on his own. The children clapped as he took Ariana's hand and spoke his vows. "Ariana, from the night our paths crossed in mystery and moonlight, through trials of heart and storm, you have been my guide, my strength, and my home. Today, before our children and family, I promise to love, protect, and cherish you always." Ariana's eyes glistened as she returned her vow. "Alexander, you found me when I was broken and knew me when I was lost. You have given me safety, love, and a family I never dared to dream of. I pledge to stand by you, to nourish our children, and to walk each day with an open heart." As they sealed their promises with a gentle kiss, the assembled guests erupted in joyful applause. Lily and Leo ran into their parents' arms, hugging tightly. Under the late afternoon sun, the Blackwood estate, once a fortress of ambition, now echoed with laughter and tender embraces. Hand in hand, Alexander and Ariana led their little family through the rose-lined paths, their hearts overflowing with hope and gratitude. And so, from a single fateful night to this moment of unity, their story came full circle, two souls bound by destiny, tempered by hardship, and united at last in the warmth of an unbreakable family.